I wanted to ask you today because today's the 31st of October, tomorrow's the 1st. There's going to be an
Mm-hmm.
unleashing of potential despair across the country as people come to grips with the fact that hunger is going to be a real thing. And I'm wondering if you, as somebody who understands healing systems, understands psychology, this is literally your area. I wondered if there were any insight that you would have for those who are in our community as mental health workers, social workers, healers, parents, people who are of good conscience and of good heart. If you could help us understand what we need to be aware of as we are working with either Black clients, our friends, our family, so on and so forth, through the trauma of the era we are about to enter. Oftentimes, trauma is not something you know is going to happen. It happens and it just hits you. But the part of the trauma of this moment is that we have known it's happening for so long, and now to be here, I'm wondering
Mm-hmm.
if you have any insight for us as to how we can be as whole as possible in our spirit, souls, in our mental health as we grapple with what's happening right now.
That is just such a big question, Lurie, and I hope I can
Yeah.
do it justice.
I think
Because
anything you could offer would help heal,
okay,
would ease some
okay,
of our hearts.
yeah, but part of it is that we we can ease hearts, but we also have to ease stomachs. I mean, we're looking at SNAP benefits not being supplied for, um, willfully being not funded because there
Right.
is money. And so these are
Yeah.
choices that people make. And so there is this fundamental, I guess what I would say then for folks who are in this relational space with members of our community, and that's all of us because we're going to have to hold each other. So we may be
Yep.
going through things while at the same time trying to hold space for each other, let alone for those who are doing mental health work in community spaces and especially non-traditional spaces. So maybe it's not the therapy room, but there are practices happening in the community. In any case, to appreciate just um, how deeply betraying this is,
Mm.
how deeply personal this is. Um, and to unpack that a little bit. So, we live in a capitalist society. And so, we live in a society that says, particularly in the US, if you can make it, this is the land of milk and honey, assumingly, right? And
Mm.
you're supposed to, even as an immigrant or, be able to be someone who comes here and to make a life. And certainly, if you're born here with that abundance, you should be able to support and supply for yourself. We've seen also that that's not necessarily true, but that is the gaslighting that has happened in the country over many years,
Yeah.
particularly
Oh no.
um, for Black Americans, but others
There
as
was a
well.
weird audio
Uh-oh,
thing that
can you
happened.
hear
Yeah, you said
me?
particularly for Black women, and then it all went out, and I was scared
Oh,
that the devil
I
was
said
trying to win.
particularly for the devil, for Black Americans, but other groups as well. Right. So, the devil. So, um, so yeah, like that is this conundrum. And I think one of the things that folks are recognizing is that we may have known that perhaps that mythology was not true, but we were told it was a mythology. And now most all of us, and that includes Black people, white people, Latinx folks, Asian, it includes a lot of people who are witnessing the faltering of our government systems. And so things that many Black people have felt and expressed, particularly those who were disenfranchised and would be the ones who would say like, why should I vote? It doesn't matter this country. Now many others are experiencing that feeling that many
Mm.
Black folks have experienced for many years, even and despite the civil rights movement and that Barack Obama was president. And so now the rest of the
Right.
country is sort of experiencing the way in which you can be uh, neglected, betrayed, by your government, and
Mm.
feeling it as so because it has the money to feed you and it doesn't. It has the resources to fund other governments and their farmers, but not yours. It has the resources to play supplements for the coverage of your Medicare so that it is more accessible to you, but it's just choosing not to. It can do this, but it's not right. And so there is a lot. We are not without money to do things. And that's what people really need to
Right.
understand here. But there is this betrayal then if you can and you just choose not to. And so
Mm,
that, for those who understand and have been paying attention to the political conversation, is that. But here's the thing: not everybody is paying attention to the political conversation.
right.
You know that, right? I mean, you do this
Yep.
work day in and day out. I love the way that you do the work. I'm such a fan and a follower.
Thank you.
And I am. And I also know that you have the ear of a population, a proportion of the people who are affected by these things. So, what I would say is that in community and to deal with the the harm, mental, psychological, and emotional, but also physical harm that is
Yes.
going to happen to people, because being hungry is physically harmful. It's
Yeah.
violent to starve people,
Yes.
to not give them sustenance, especially when you can.
Right.
That when we're interfacing with people, we have to sort of sit in the reality of their psychology and their positionalities. So one, the way to respond to that is to figure out how you can be a part of getting people some of the resources that they need, even though they don't have them.
Mm,
And don't start with politics, start with bread,
wow.
because people can't hear you when they're hungry.
That's
And
right.
you talking all that is going to
Amazing how
really,
loud hunger pains can be. They're extraordinarily
they
loud.
can't. And they can't hear you when they're afraid of being hungry, when they're afraid of their babies being hungry, not being it. There are people who have children with asthma who can't get inhalers. That's going to be a situation. There are folks with diabetes who are not going to be able to get their insulin, even though it was just promised that it would be no more than $35. Now it's going to be really, really high. So there are folks
Mm,
dealing with real practical material needs. And so, when we in my field, we talk about the hierarchy of needs. You have to supply and be responsive to some of those basic biological needs if you want to get to the psychological. In fact, the
mm,
psychological won't be available to you in terms of addressing and supporting there, if you don't address and aren't responsive to the biological as well, because we're
right.
human beings first.
Yeah. I think this is why the work that the Black Panther Party was engaged in
Yes.
with their service programs was so
Mm-hmm.
threatening. And we talked earlier this
Yes.
week. You guys may remember if
Mm-hmm.
you missed it. It's either on the app or the archives or the YouTube. It's somewhere. It's out. But we talked about the fact that they started these free food programs. At one point,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Wendy, they had been feeding so many young people, and
Mm-hmm.
out of a recognition that the people on the block was hungry. Like it
Yes.
wasn't like they had some massive study. Like there wasn't
Mm-hmm.
this cutoff of social service. There was
Mm-hmm.
people who had never been able to access social services to
Correct.
the extent that their needs could get met, and they decided to feed people. And once you can feed people and quell the hunger pains, then they're willing to listen to you talk to them
Mm-hmm.
about political advocacy and activism and what it means to build a better world. And it wasn't just even the food. Dr. Wendy Williams, they had the health clinics. They were doing tuberculosis screenings, sickle cell screenings, helping people with real material needs. Then I can give you some medicine in the applesauce because the applesauce is going to be met in a belly that's already got some other food in it. You're more willing to engage. And that is also what made them a threat.
Yes.
And so I'm conscious of this moment we're in because past is present. And if
Mm-hmm.
we're doing the work effectively, of meeting people's needs in spite of the fact that the government wants to cut them off. We had Travis Peters who just called in. I can't wait to get him on the show. This is the brother,
Mm.
the farmer in Detroit who was like,
I heard
I
about
got
it. Mm.
food, you got
Uh-huh.
hunger, let's get together.
Let's get
And
together.
but one of the things he said as he was saying it, as we were saying goodbye from the call was,
Mm-hmm.
don't slip into chaos and anarchy. They
I heard
want
him.
you because
Mm-hmm.
when you're hungry, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to engage in anarchy. And he said, don't do it, y'all. They want that. And Dr. Wendy Williams, I'm clear that as we effectively do the work of feeding people, because we are going to effectively do the work of feeding
We
people, that's
are.
something our culture is going to do.
Yes.
I'm conscious of the fact that that act of service in
Mm-hmm.
this Old Testament white Christian nationalist America becomes the threat that then becomes something that empire has to respond to. And I'm wondering if there's a
Mm.
way for us to gear up for that element of it. You got to gird up your loins, as the word says. How do we gird up our minds to grapple with that element of it?
Well, listen, and I have been with you for a few months now, so I'm going to talk about our ancestors.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about this. It's not new, and you know this, or you should. So that's what I think, that you gird up your loins and you recognize what the threat really is, and you take lesson and take heed from what has worked before. Here's the thing: what's happening is not new, and how to respond to it is not new.
Mm,
What's happening is not new, same playbook. different time. How to
Yep.
respond to it is not new. And so you mentioned the Black Panther Party. I'm thinking about, after Juneteenth when folks left plantations and we had to figure it out. And Juneteenth that ran for 2 years because of how long it took to get a message across the country, right? But still,
Right.
that we still had to engage in practices and behaviors of mutual aid. We still had to put things in priority and um, or put, prioritize, our focus and really get things going. The reality is that Black people in this nation have always had to think about how to supply for their needs in a country that at one point in time determined that because we were no longer going to be enslaved and contribute to the financial bottom line of this economy, then we were superfluous and we could figure it out on our own. That is what
Right.
happened. And whenever people are deemed superfluous, it is very dangerous for them to be seen as such by their government or by any other, by their government or any other entity that would see them as like, well, you're extra, so we don't need you. And
Mm.
so out of our superfluity, right, came many systems and structures that were born out of formerly enslaved Africans, Black people, human trafficked, raped and pillaged, right, to this country came systems of the social safety and network. So public education is an invention by Black people that actually benefited most of their folks too, especially poor whites, because we knew that if we were going to not be superfluous, one of the things we needed to do was to educate our children and
Mm.
educate our communities and our societies, and also meant that uneducated poor whites had an opportunity to learn too, because we understood that this was good for everybody. We understood
Right.
that if everybody understood the situation, they might have an opportunity to act in their best interest or not. And
Mm.
other dynamics, other structures were developed and can be developed too. And I think that we're in this space right now. So with the farmer that you just spoke to, and I heard the last tidbit, I was really excited to hear from him because I see right now, Lurie, a real opportunity for deep entrepreneurial, liberatory entrepreneurial ways of thinking and being and doing
Ooh.
work that is our potential. We have always bemoaned, we being in our community, and I can just speak from my experience and growing up as a Black girl in Southern California and what was poured into me by folks who were raising and rearing me, which is that you don't ever want to get too dependent on systems. God bless the child who has her own.
Mm.
God bless her. And so, what is it that this community, that our communities are going to have to do to have our own, particularly when you have a government that may turn its back on feeding you, on caring for you? Because what we are seeing, what you saw with the Black Panther Party, was it wasn't a political act, it was an act of care. Now,
Mm.
an act of care is a political act because when you have a governmental system into which you pay taxes and to which you say that those taxes then are meant to then provide for an infrastructure that allows all of us to be here in such a way that we get our mail, can go to the library, can go to school, can go to the doctor, all those things, then you start to see the ways in which this relationship is supposed to be reciprocal and to work with one another. And if it then is not doing so, other people, other ways of meeting that need beget the question, well, why am I interacting with this government in a way that is not reciprocal? It takes, but it does not give. I'm
Mm.
getting my needs met in other places. I would like to give and buy into, invest in that which will kind of connect with the needs being met within not only for me, but our communities. Because what I know is that if we don't feed people in our communities, if we don't educate and take care of everybody in our communities are at risk of that type of atrophy and um, anarchy that your previous caller
Yep.
talked about. And
Yep.
we and so it harms all of us. It makes all of us not well and all of us not sick and all of us sick. And it's not just self-interest. It's that I actually just want us to be well
Right.
because I find value in that. So if I'm not speaking to that from an avoidance perspective, I'm speaking to that because I am a human being who has good insight and a love for people and our communities, and I want us to be well. And part of that is that we have to take care of each other. Our system, our tax system, and all that had that as a ultimate or bottom line premise. At least it seemed to be until it
Mm.
doesn't.
Right. Right. And I love what you said, everything that you just said. And the part that I'm sticking with is in this particular moment is entrepreneurial liberatory practices.
I'm here for it.
Because Yes, I feel like, and I keep seeing this sort of subtext in the conversations I'm even observing online, where in a number of the Black women social spaces that I sit, there's a we didn't want this to happen. We would have preferred that this not happen, but now that it has happened, they are forcing us to tap into reserves that, frankly, we could have gone our whole lives without tapping. But now that we gonna tap it, we are you cannot put back, ain't no putting this back. We are
Mm-mm.
tapping into the capacity to see the world differently in a paradigmatic shift sort of way that,
Yes.
I don't know, Wendy, I feel like I could have worked my whole life under other, had the outcome of the election been different, we would not be tapping into levels of strength the way that we are being forced to do now. Now, I didn't want this to happen, but maybe that's because I prefer brunch. I prefer, comfort. I can, I'm down for the struggle as much as everybody else. I don't like struggle. Like, I like, doing line
Lurie,
dances and not having to worry.
we
But
about to have the
baby,
best brunches, farm
girl,
produced, non-GMO food brunches in
ooh,
beautiful spaces. I
yes.
feel, yes, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there is no
No,
need to
that
be
was a good
afraid
interruption.
of running off of this plantation.
Ooh, 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 ooh. Hey, 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 oh, he tied my bow tie. Oh my God. Did I break something? Did I disconnect? Can y'all
I
still hear
think
me?
you
Oh my
might
God.
have. I
Oh
think you
my
might
God.
have.
There
True.
is nothing to say that again.
There is nothing to be afraid of. We've kept calling these jobs plantations. We have these metaphors that are real and legitimate in terms of how these systems have developed, and we know that we don't like them. Listen, you know my work
Mm,
or my work is on Black women and our leadership. That is what I focus
yes.
on and what I talk about. And
Yes.
the 300,000 plus Black women who have lost their job is like the most powerful resource that we have ever seen. Once we get up after hearts have been
Oh
broken,
my
the
God.
92% of us are there in that space. There is nothing that can stop you or me or anyone who acts like us from doing what we want to do. Ask your mama. So,
Mm,
so just think about that. Think about that level of power unleashed. Think about that level of power unleashed. I was just recently in a conversation where I was talking about this exact topic, and I said to the group, this is an amazing time.
yes.
When you work within these systems, there's a cap on your potential. Now, I know your heart is broken because there's a little bit of like, the psychology of this is to get a good job. I lost my job. What's wrong with me? Imposter syndrome comes up there.
Right.
I can't take
Right.
care of myself or my family. We know that that kind of browbeating has hurt so many people in our community, especially Black men, at other times of economic restriction when those opportunities were taken from them and they weren't able to play into the patriarchal, I provide for my family narrative.
Mm,
That's what hurt them a lot. And that's what hurt us a lot as well. But right now, Black men and Black women, and I would say so many other people because it was the 300,000, the plus Black women, but it's the 800,000 right now, plus people in this country who are
mm,
jobless because of this shutdown and other shenanigans that have happened with regard to job loss in this country. So that is nearly a million people who are facing into this devastation. We've said that the Black women were the canary in the coal mine, and we are. But also, when our backs are against the wall, we have been reared, and it's not anything that I celebrate. I don't celebrate the strong Black woman persona,
yeah.
but I
Right.
understand that we are in fact stronger, faster, and smarter.
Yes.
You are actually, because you were reared that way. We all saw the
Right.
Olivia Pope uh, episode when he's like, "Oh, that looks familiar." And so
Right.
you are stronger, faster, and smarter. Imagine if she puts that effort toward her and toward a business that she wants to do, or maybe she doesn't own the business. Maybe she goes into a collective. Maybe she does whatever it is that we build is going to be amazing
Girl.
because we build to last and we build for sustainability and we build for survival. We don't build just to feel good about it for a weekend brunch. We're going to build the brunch spot. We're going to
Oh
have
my
farm to
God.
table brunches. When you say I like to have, you're going to have a great brunch. You're going to have the brunch on
Mm.
somebody's black farm,
Ooh. Oh my
drinking their
God.
black wine, their black prosecco from citrus grown on their black orchid. You
Oh my
are.
God.
Like there's a
Mm.
there's a possibility of that and I really want us to understand that this moment feels dark because someone feels good about they thought that they took something from you, but you didn't really like all that much what you were enjoying with them all
Come
that much.
on.
If you're
Come
honest about
on.
it, you were capped at what they thought your possibility was. You were capped Your pay, your paycheck, your salary was capped at what they said and felt that you were worth when they hired you. What would you pay yourself?
Mm,
And where would that go? And what if you could have that without all the microaggressions? I mean, there is
right.
just something so spectacular and awesome in this moment. I know it's hard, but we come from people who have always done hard things. And you can do a hard thing right now. You know how to scrimp and scrape. Do it for a little while. Save, grow, and see what happens. The next
Yeah.
10 years are going to be absolutely amazing because you're not going to be able to get us back into those systems. That's what they're
Come
not,
on.
that's not what they have
Come
bet
on.
on. They have not planned for that. And that is a real danger. You can play these games if you want. There are all these I'll be silly, but sometimes folks in a relationship and someone says, well, I'm gonna break up with you. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you're like, I want to get back together. Well, I don't want to get back with you because I'm happy and I
That
have
bridge has
plenty.
broken.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I don't know that America knows what to do when a black woman breaks up with her.
So I'm hearing, and I'm gonna have to go back and rewind and listen to you. But I don't often. I usually don't ever listen to myself after I do because I hate the sound of my voice when I'm listening
Oh,
to. I'm very
your
critical. I
voice
should say
is
I hate the sound of my voice. I'm
beautiful. Your
critical.
voice is
Thank you. Thank
fine.
you.
It's
Thank you.
fine.
But I'm gonna have to go back and listen to you say that again because I feel like as you were saying that, what was coming up for me was the only thing that could stop our potential in this moment to build freedom for ourselves is if we were still spending our energy building the plantations that we wanted to get off of in the
That's
first place.
exactly it. That is exactly it. We got comfortable with that, but we were not comfortable there. And I think that there's a reality check here. And this is the kind of work from a therapy or mental health or coaching space that I would do. Did you really like it? Let's talk. Your
Mm.
therapist always does is when someone comes in and talks about a breakup, like, okay, I know you're sad. What are some things you get to do now that you're not in that relationship anymore?